Now available in paperback and e-readers. John Haynes, 1987. Learn lessons about life and teenage love in the 1980s in this coming-of-age John Haynes story. Get your copy of John Haynes, 1987 in paperback and e-readers at Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Batman's partners have always been boy wonders. However, one of the Robins was on the road to becoming a man in crisis. Now, Dick Grayson and Tim Drake were two legendary Robins, and they were legendary Robins because they knew how to work with Batman in the field, and the reason why they were such effective Robins and great heroes was because both Dick Grayson and Tim Drake came from households where they were raised with a father. And because they were raised with a father to give them a structure as related to family and learned how to work with a male authority figure, they learned how to submit to male authority, which is something that is essential to working with Batman in the field as he's taking on members of his rogues gallery and solving crimes. Unfortunately, Bruce Wayne wasn't really thinking critically when he decided to recruit Jason Todd to become his second Robin, and because Bruce Wayne was in an emotional place, he wound up putting a boy who wasn't suited to be a Robin in a place to be a hero, and sadly, Jason Todd wound up going from being a boy wonder to winding up on the road to becoming a man in crisis. Now, the two Robins that I talked about, Dick Grayson and Tim Drake, again, the reason why they were such effective heroes was due to the fathers they had in their lives when they were young, and it was those fathers that helped them learn how to be able to work with another man like Bruce Wayne when he was Batman. Unfortunately, Jason Todd did not have that family structure because he came from dysfunction, and because he came from dysfunction, he really wasn't suited to be a Robin, and Bruce Wayne couldn't see that because he was upset about Dick Grayson growing up to become his own man and become his own hero, Nightwing. Now, Dick Grayson, over the course of the early 1980s, was becoming his own man as the leader of the new Teen Titans. And as the leader of the new Teen Titans, Dick Grayson was growing and developing on many of the skills that Bruce Wayne taught him, and as he was developing his own approaches to crime fighting, he decided to go in a completely different direction as from the experiences he learned as being a leader of the new Teen Titans, and also working with different individuals like Adrian Chase, who at the time in the early 80s was the New York prosecutor, and being deputized by Adrian Chase, he learned different techniques on crime fighting by working at the side of the NYPD. So Dick Grayson had learned a lot of different things and was creating his own unique approaches to crime fighting that were completely different to what a Robin would be, because a Robin was a boy who had to submit to the male authority of Bruce Wayne, and Dick Grayson no longer was learning from Bruce Wayne anymore as Batman. He was becoming his own man, having worked with multiple different types of heroes on the new Teen Titans, and also working on different types of cases with prosecutor Adrian Chase before he became vigilante. So Dick Grayson had grown up to become his own man, and Bruce Wayne basically got upset because he no longer had a boy wonder at his side, and this led to Bruce basically becoming very emotional because he had to deal with the fact that his boy wonder had become his own man, one, and two, he had to deal with the fact that he was losing a partner. And because he was up in his emotions and having all of these feelings as related to Dick Grayson leaving the nest and having things like empty nest syndrome, Bruce wanted to go out here and quickly find another partner, but sadly, because he was emotional at the time, he went out here and saw Jason Todd stealing the tires off the Batmobile in the post-crisis version of Jason Todd's origin. And when Bruce saw Jason Todd stealing the tires off the Batmobile, that's when he decided to go out here and try to help Jason Todd in the same way he helped Dick Grayson. Unfortunately, because Jason Todd came from a dysfunctional household, being the child of Willis and Catherine Todd, where his father was one of these petty crooks who was in prison, and his mother was a drug addict. So Jason Todd was basically a beta male, and with him being a beta male, that he had real serious problems as related to male authority. Now, Jason Todd was a kid who did not want to submit to male authority figures and was extremely rebellious, but Bruce couldn't see that because he was in his feelings about Dick Grayson leaving to become his own man, and because he was emotional, he wound up recruiting Jason Todd and started trying to prepare him to become the next Robin, not understanding that the boy who he wanted to make a boy wonder was a male who was not fit for the role, and he wasn't fit for the role because he was not a boy who had a father in his life to give him structure. No, what Jason was a beta male who was used to submitting to female authority figures like his drug-addicted mother, and he was also a very emotional male. And Bruce thought he could go out here and try to discipline Jason, but Jason could not be disciplined. He thought he could put him in a boarding school for troubled kids, but the whole thing was that was a criminal organization, which further showed Jason Todd's serious issues as related to anger. And Bruce thought he could go out here and channel that anger to fight criminals. Unfortunately, with beta males, the emotions they're having are what make them unstable, and it really made him unfit for crime fighting. But Bruce couldn't see that because he wanted to make Jason fit into his world as Robin, but he couldn't see that Jason was not a good fit for that role because an emotional individual is not fit for the work of Batman and Robin, because you have to be a critical thinker who uses logic and reason in order to deal with individuals like many of the members of Batman's Rogues Gallery who are psychotic and look to use emotions to manipulate people. And that's what made Jason Todd a poor fit for the role of Robin. But Bruce, because he was still hurting over Jason leaving, Dick leaving, because he was emotional over Dick leaving, he wanted to make Jason Todd fit into that role. Unfortunately, Jason Todd didn't fit into that role, oftentimes going into violent confrontations, like when he found out that his father was killed by Two-Face. He went into a violent rampage where he wound up just brutally beating up people until he confronted Two-Face, and then he managed to just get a little control of his anger, but then he wound up losing more control over his anger over time and was extremely impulsive. And this is another trait that beta males have, that they, again, are emotional. They act impulsively, not thinking of their consequences. There was a case where there was a diplomat who was sexually violating people, and Jason Todd basically let that individual die. Again, not thinking about meting out justice as related to letting the courts handle this individual, and the courts couldn't handle this individual due to diplomatic immunity, but Jason unilaterally decided that this person deserved to die, something out of Batman's code, and oftentimes went out here and further he participated in things like, again, using excessive force, and went out here looking to participate in things like going out here to use things like guns. Again, something that is, again, not out of the code of Batman, but with beta males, they really don't care. Again, beta males, everything is about them sating their emotions, and that's what made Jason Todd not fit for the role of Robin. They really don't. They don't. It's really all about them, and it's all about how they feel at the time. And sadly, Bruce, as he was trying to make Jason work into the role of Robin, he began losing more and more control out of himself. And the sad part is that Bruce was trying to force things to work. He even asked Batgirl to come out of retirement to work with Jason on a case to get better insight on him. But sadly, Jason is so dark. The whole thing is Bruce didn't really understand how dark beta males are. And again, beta males, they really, everything is about their feelings, and it's about sating their feelings, and that's what makes them very dangerous individuals to have in a job like being a Robin. Now, a Robin, again, is somebody who has to have good critical thinking skills and good analytical skills and the ability to navigate through their emotions, because in Batman's Rogues Gallery there are a whole host of hardcore psychotic individuals, and they will go out here and manipulate your feelings to be able to take advantage of you. And again, this is what made Jason Todd unfit to be a Robin, and over the course of multiple cases he showed how dangerous he was. And everything as related to these numerous cases, like in one adventure where he used excessive force, another one where he took out a gun, which again is just counter to everything Batman is all about, and then the one where he went after the foreign national who violated a woman who killed herself, and then he possibly could have murdered him. This showed that Jason was a person who was completely out of control, and Bruce kept trying to make Jason fit, because he was still upset about his feelings as related to having a no partner, and he thought he could force Jason into his life, but this was becoming a codependent relationship, and things came to a head in the storyline A Death in the Family. Now, in the story A Death in the Family, Jason Todd discovered that his mother was not his biological mother, and then decided to try to find out who was his biological mother. And after following a number of leads, Jason eventually found his mother, Sheila, who was working in Ethiopia as an aid worker. And while Jason was caught up in his feelings about his mother, he didn't understand that his mother was one of these criminals who was out here and working with the Joker. And as he was trying to go out here and tried to deal with the fact that his mother was involved with the Joker, he acted impulsively by going out here to try to protect his mother, because this is what beta males try to do. They try to protect the female authority figures. And again, his impulsiveness and his emotions basically put him in an extremely dangerous situation. And they put him in an extremely dangerous situation because he was dealing with a hardcore psychotic individual in the Joker. And as he was dealing with this hardcore psychotic individual, the Joker basically looked to take advantage of Jason's emotional state. And as he took advantage of Jason's emotional state, first his goons wound up beating him up, and then the Joker then took out his crowbar and then brutally beat him with a crowbar to the point where he was severely injured. And as he beat him with the crowbar to the point where he was severely injured, the Joker then tied Jason Todd's biological mother up to a post inside of the warehouse that she was working in, and set off a bomb to go off. And as Jason was trying to go out here and trying to get his mother out of the warehouse, sadly it wound up blowing up, killing him. Now, the reason why Jason Todd wound up getting killed was because Jason Todd was a beta male, and because he was a beta male who was used to acting on impulse, he basically wound up becoming somebody the Joker could easily get to take advantage of. And as the Joker wound up taking advantage of Jason Todd's emotions, he then used this to gain an upper hand on him, something he would not have been able to do with Dick Grayson or Tim Drake, because Dick Grayson and Tim Drake were raised by fathers, and because they had a structure of a man in their lives, they knew to submit to male authority figures because those male authority figures had more experience in life, and because those male authority figures had more life experience, they could go out here and teach them why they needed to move a certain way. Unfortunately, Jason Todd, because he was raised by a single mother who was a drug addict, he was used to submitting to female authority figures. And because he was used to submitting to female authority figures, he did not know how to go out here and work with a man. And he did not know how to respect the authority of a man. And that was shown in his actions as related to being impulsive and using excessive force, and even going out here and taking out a gun and using it in a situation. Again, after knowing what Bruce had taught him about how guns took his own parents' life, you would think Jason would have respected his mentor. But because he had no respect for his mentor as a male authority figure, this is why he wound up taking out a gun and using it, and still was using guns in the retcon as related to him becoming the Red Hood. And again, Jason, everything about him was all about emotion. And again, it was him being emotional that basically made it where he was a danger not only to Batman, but to himself, and was a danger in the field. And again, all of that dysfunction that he learned in that single mother household, that basically laid the road for him becoming the man in crisis who wound up dying at the hands of the Joker. And again, he wound up dying at the hands of the Joker because he did not have any sort of discipline or self-control taught to him at a young age. He never lived in a household with structure like Dick Grayson and Tim Drake did. And because he did not have a father there to teach him logic and reason, he really wasn't fit for the work of being a detective. No, in order to work with Batman, you have to be a critical thinker, have the ability to use logic and reason, and the ability to go out here and think critically. And Jason, while he was a very emotional person and was very angry, yes, that can go out here and help you to overpower opponents physically. But in the world of Gotham City, where many of the villains are hardcore psychotics, this makes Jason Todd a liability. And sadly, Jason Todd, as a liability, basically got himself killed. And this is where Batman was really hurt even further emotionally, because he realized that in his emotions, picking Jason Todd to be a Robin was the biggest mistake of his career. And it was the biggest mistake of his career because he was out here picking an individual to work with him because he wanted to be in an emotional place. And that's what happened to Bruce Wayne. He was in an emotional place. And the entire story of a death in the family was all about Batman learning about one of the greatest flaws a man could have, and that is being emotional. Because when a man is emotional, he winds up making decisions without ever thinking critically. And because he doesn't think critically, he winds up having to deal with consequences later on. And that's the whole theme of a death in the family. Many comic writers really don't understand. Many comic writers out here today, they read a death in the family and all they think about is, oh, Jason Todd was killed by a pole. But what they didn't understand was the Jason Todd character was all about sending a message to readers about how Bruce Wayne is a human being, and how as a human being, Bruce Wayne can go out here and make mistakes that can have an impact on Batman. And the emotional place that Bruce was in as related to Dick Grayson led to him making an impulsive decision as Batman to take on Jason Todd to be a partner. And as he looked to take Jason Todd on to be a partner, sadly what happened was he wound up dealing with a beta male, and this beta male was a ticking time bomb that as he exploded in rage wound up dying in an explosion, and he wound up dying in that explosion because he was so in his feelings that he never really thought about how to confront the Joker, something Tim Drake thought about in Robin 2, The Joker's Wild. And because Tim Drake was in his right place and had a father in his life, he could overcome the Joker the same way Dick Grayson overcame the Joker. But Jason Todd wasn't able to overcome the Joker in A Death in the Family because Jason was in his feelings and the Joker took advantage of those feelings. And again, this is something many comic writers never really understand today, that Jason Todd was a commentary on, again, Batman being human, Batman making mistakes, and why you can't be emotional to be Batman's partner. It was a commentary on these things, and this is why I believe Jason Todd's death needed to remain a part of the DC canon, because it was a point where the Batman character and Bruce Wayne grew as characters, and they grew as characters because they understood again that Bruce could make mistakes because he's human, and it also showed that the work that Batman does is extremely dangerous. So I always felt that DC going out here and retconning Jason Todd's death with this stupid Superboy Prime punch as related to the walls of the DC universe was complete bullshit. And I believe that it was one of the worst decisions that was ever done, because Jason Todd as a character, he deserves to remain dead, and he deserves to remain dead to be a marker as related to him, one, being a beta male unfit for the role of Robin, and two, a place to show that Bruce Wayne and Batman had to grow as characters as related to making emotional mistakes. The first being Jason Todd being Robin, the second being giving John Paul Valley, Azrael, the role of Batman. Again, these were mistakes that showed that Bruce could be a human being and not this Gary Stu that we've seen on shows like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, who was presented as knowing everything. We needed to see Bruce having flaws. We needed to see Bruce growing from his mistakes, like when he picked Tim Drake to become Robin. And we needed to see this growth as a character for the Bruce Wayne character, because the retcon punch from Superboy Prime and bringing Jason Todd back basically compromises the Batman character and destroyed the dynamics of the Bat family in the 2000s. And it destroyed the dynamics because it just seems out of character for Bruce to allow Jason Todd to be roaming the streets, and again, with a gun. Again, it just is out of character because Bruce never sanctions guns, and have a member of his family carrying guns and using them. That just runs counter to everything that Batman is all about. But our editors like Dan Didio give it a pass. But if Sean was running DC Comics, Jason Todd would remain in the grave, and he would remain in the grave because it's all about the dynamics of the Bat family, which have been made further dysfunctional. And they've been made further dysfunctional because as they've allowed Jason Todd to grow up to become a man, the Jason Todd character has not grown into a hero. No, he's grown into a man in crisis. And sadly, this man in crisis, as a part of the Bat family, is one of the most dysfunctional members of the Bat family. And he's one of the most dysfunctional members of the Bat family because he's a beta male who doesn't know how to work with male authority figures, doesn't know how to work as a team, wants to go out here and act on his impulses, has not really worked out any of this because he's used to submitting to female authority figures like Talia al Ghul and his mother. And he's a character that really represents the worst about these anti-heroes. He's not a hero at all because he grew up to become a dysfunctional boy who sadly grew up to become a man in crisis. Now, this was a video requested by one of my viewers, and if you want to request a video, you can send a donation to the Cash App, and if I know something about that subject, I will make that video for you. And if you want to pick up some of my comics, like John Haynes at Death's Door, you can get your own paper copy at Lulu. And if you want to get a digital copy of my E-Steam comic, No Good Deed, you can get that on Kindle for 99 cents, or you can get a paper version by picking up E-Steam Blast from the Past. And if you want to pick up some of my other books on the SJS Direct imprint, like the ISIS series, the Esteem series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my vampire novel Eternal Night, and my books A Recipe for Success and the Thetas, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available on Lulu, John Haynes at Death's Door. The man who rules the world takes on the Greek god of death in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes comic book. Get your copy of the first John Haynes comic at lulu.com today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Godbreaker. The man who rules the world takes on the Asgardian god of thunder in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Get your copy of John Haynes, Godbreaker in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.